How many of you had high cholesterol on that report, high total cholesterol? And out of you, how many of your doctors said, we got to do something about that, or statin recommendation? Yeah?
We're not doing that.
Okay, not doing that.
I know better than that.
You know better than that.
I said, look, there's a ratio, and mine's good. So we're leaving it.
There you go. You've done your research.
I've done my research.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to equip you even more with that. There's actually only one cause of heart disease. I learned this. Only one cause, and that is damage to the blood vessel. But there are multiple things that cause that, and that's what today's presentation is about. It's focusing on the multiple things that actually damage the blood vessels. Come on in here. But the only cause is damage to the blood vessels. So the question is, okay, what are the top contributor things that damage the blood vessels? And that's what we're going to cover today. And we know heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States, followed by cancer, and they kind of swap back and forth. According to the CDC, cancer, 1 in men get diagnosed with cancer within their lifetime, and for women it's 1 in 3. And we also know things like Harvard is putting out an article saying by 2030, half of the population will be obese. By 2032, 1 in 2 children will be born autistic. Like, we see things that are trending in directions that are kind of scary, right? But there's some things we can do about it, and the body is built so magnificently. The goal is to identify the interference and remove it. And then the innate intelligence goes to work, the inner physician, the world's greatest doctor. So that's what today's about. Ready to go?
Yes, you are.
I'm ready to go.
You're ready to
Okay, now we can officially start. Well, my name is Ben Azadi. I'm an FDNP practitioner. That stands for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. I have 4 books. My latest one is called Keto Flex, which one of you will win when I ask you some questions later. This is the book right here. I've been in the health space since 2008. I was obese physically, obese mentally, suicidal, and I took responsibility and I got my life back. So I've been in the health space for 16 years. I'm a student and a teacher, and a student and a teacher. I'm constantly learning and unlearning and relearning. And one of my favorite things to do is to be here with you and teach, especially in person. And I was saying earlier, before some of you got here, that it's Saturday, we're in Fort Lauderdale, the beach is right here, and you're sitting learning about cholesterol. So give yourself a big round of applause for being here. Big round of applause, go ahead. For learning about cholesterol on a Saturday when you could be hanging out at Las Olas Boulevard. So let's get right into this. A lie told often enough often becomes the truth. One of those lies is cholesterol being bad for you. And the gentleman responsible for it is a guy named Ancel Keys. How many of you have heard of this guy before? Yeah, boo, we don't like this guy. So he was the creator of the World War II, ration. He was the author, this is the study right here, the 7-country study that changed everything for us. And it's why the low-fat craze came about. It's why your doctor wants to put you on a statin. It's why cholesterol is the boogeyman, because of that 7-country study. But here's the thing. In that study, they used trans fat-rich margarine, saying that it was butter, saturated fat, but it was fake butter, fake food. And what he did, he fooled us all, because he used only 6 countries out of his 22 countries that fit his agenda, correlating increase in saturated fat, increase in heart disease. But he left out so many other countries that didn't follow his hypothesis. And he lied about it. And now we see that, but back then we had no idea. We thought this was the truth. The more fat you eat, the more heart disease occurs in your country. And the reason they think that is because every time they would look at arteries of heart attack victims, they would see a buildup of cholesterol. And they would blame that cholesterol because this person had a heart attack, buildup of these fatty cholesterol streaks, and that's what caused the heart attack. That was the conclusion they made. But that is like saying, hey, every time there's a fire in my neighborhood, I always notice firefighters there. Therefore, it's the firefighters that cause the fire. That doesn't make any sense, right? The firefighters are there to put out the fire. They're protecting the damage. Cholesterol is there to put out the fire, the inflammation. It's a Band-Aid to protect the damage. The damage, as I said earlier, is damage to the blood vessels. So it's not cholesterol that caused it. Cholesterol is there to help us from whatever caused it. And that's the big confusion there. And how many of you know Dr. Philip Ovadia? Anybody know Dr. Philip Ovadia? He's one of the world's leading heart surgeons. I've interviewed him on my podcast, and I extracted a clip. I was putting together this presentation, and by the way, this presentation, I was telling Gloria, brand new presentation, and I spent a lot of time to really make sure you get this and that you could walk out of here feeling equipped and inspired. Come on in. Hey, Tommy. Come on in. So Dr. Philip Bavadia was on my Keto Camp podcast, and here's a little clip. First of all, he's a heart surgeon. He has a book called Stay Off My Operating Table. He eats keto and carnivore, by the way. And here's his thoughts on cholesterol. Let me play this real quick.
Forms of heart disease, but the most common form is what we call atherosclerotic heart disease, the buildup of plaque within the arteries of the heart that can ultimately lead to things like heart attacks. And when you look at atherosclerotic heart disease, it really comes down to one major factor, and that is damage to the blood vessel wall. That is the inciting event that has to happen for these plaques to start to build up. Now, what causes that damage? That's where we get into some different factors.
That's the
big
question.
ones.
Yeah.
Yep. The big ones are going to be insulin resistance, first, and foremost, probably the most common problem today. Smoking is another big one. Now, we've done a pretty good job at cutting down on the smoking rates. And, that ultimately is what led to some of the improvements we saw around heart disease, throughout the 1980s, 1990s, and, up until about 2000, when that downward trend that we were seeing started to go back up again. Probably high blood pressure is the other most common one we see. But again, high blood pressure acts via insulin resistance. Mm-hmm. So it really comes down to insulin resistance and then other toxins that damage the blood vessels, smoking being the most common, but there are other things like heavy metals, air pollution, things like that can cause that as well. But ultimately, we have to come back to damage to the blood vessel wall, to the lining of the blood vessel, as the root cause of heart disease.
The root cause, the only cause. So insulin resistance, high insulin levels, that's going to be part of the test I'm going to go over with you. Smoking, of course, but environmental toxins, and there are other key things that we'll focus on today. And this is coming from a man that is a leading authority. He's a heart surgeon. He operates on people who have heart disease, and he eats a carnivore diet. And I have some really cool things to share with you regarding a carnivore diet. Has anybody tried a carnivore diet before? Anybody doing carnivore right now? Just 2, 3, 4. Carnivore-ish, cool. Ketovore, yeah. So I just did 90 days of carnivore. I just came off of it 2 weeks ago. I just had nothing but saturated fat, cholesterol, just meat and eggs. But here's the thing. You say that to your doctor and they say, what are you doing to yourself? You are going to have a heart attack. You might look good and lose some weight, but you're going to die. So I did a whole bunch of lab work. Come on in here. I did a whole bunch of lab work on day one. A $3,500 LabCorp panel on day one. I did a stool test on day one. I put on a continuous glucose monitor on day one, and I tracked my heart rate variability, my resting heart rate, my sleep scores via this Oura ring. And then on day 90, before I broke the carnivore, I did all the labs again, the stool test, the blood test, and I'm going to share with you in a little bit some of my findings. I just got the report 2 days ago. So I'm going to share with you some of the surroundings there, or the findings there. So stay tuned for that, because you would think, number one, if I'm not eating plants and vegetables, that you would see my gut diversity decrease, right? We've heard that we need fiber, prebiotic bacteria, probiotics to increase gut diversity, but I actually did my stool test. I'll share this with you right now. And when I did the stool test on day one, the report came back saying, stay away from a ketogenic diet. Stay away from eating too much meat. Eat a plant-based diet. Let's build diversity. And what did I do? The complete opposite. I ate nothing but meat for 90 days. And I did the same test, and my diversity actually got better. Why is that? Anybody know why that happened? Because I didn't have any vegetables. The reason it happened is because whenever you change your foods, it's a stress to your gut microbiome. When you stress the gut microbiome, it creates more diversity. What else stresses the gut microbiome? Fasting, red light therapy, exercise. going in and out of ketosis, which is what I teach, doing carnivore and coming out of carnivore. Or if you're doing carnivore and you want to be strict or keto, you change your foods. So many people eat the same 6 or 8 foods, but the more you change foods, your body, your gut microbiome has to adapt to it. So I saw an increase in my gut diversity by doing the opposite of what the labs told me to do. And the cholesterol part I'll go over when I go over the lipids. But here's the thing, statins. Look at how much, it's a cash cow. They're selling sickness, essentially. In 2023, they made $15.4 billion from statins. So you can see why, they probably know the truth of what we're going to teach here, but it doesn't make sense to give it to people because there's no money in being proactive. There's no money in curing people. There's money in selling sickness. And it's actually, we're beyond selling sickness. It's actually now to a point where they're creating sickness and then selling sickness. So we know it's a big pharma, it's a big business, and they work with big government and big food. There's a lot there. And here's an example of how this works. We go to a convenience store. Let's say this is Walgreens. And the front of the store, what do you see? All this packaged food with a whole bunch of inflammatory, artificial ingredients, seed oils. It's cheap and it's convenient. So most people, they buy it. And they go home and they eat that packaged food. They drink the sodas, the diet sodas with sucralose and aspartame, and they get symptoms as a result. They get high blood pressure. They get brain fog. They start gaining weight. These are all symptoms, but symptoms are not bad. So when they get the symptoms, their doctor tells them, we need to prescribe a medication for that symptom. So they return to the same store, the Walgreens, but now they're walking to the back of the store and they pick up that prescription. But they don't change their lifestyle. They don't get to the cause. They go back to the store. Now they keep buying the stuff at the front. They get a second prescription and come to the back of the store. You can see how this works. Front of the store, back of the store. Front of the store, back of the store. So everybody's making money here off of sickness. But again, symptoms are a gift from your innate intelligence. Symptoms are your body's check engine light. It's communicating to you that you're eating something inflammatory, you're thinking something inflammatory, you're in an environment that's inflammatory. This human body is going to show you in the form of a symptom. And it could be cancer. Cancer is a symptom. Heart disease is a symptom. Diabetes is a symptom. Autoimmune. I could go on and on. But the symptoms are not the problem. They are a result of the problem. We have forgotten about the check engine light. The body's always communicating to us. So allopathic medicine wants to cover up the check engine light. Us here, I call us the 3%ers, we want to get to the cause of what turned on the check engine light. So that's going to be the theme for today. And a cured patient is a lost customer. It is a sad truth. This part is very important, and I'm going to tie it into why I'm going to talk about the environment here. But Neville Goddard, anybody's familiar with Neville Goddard's work? Oh, I love it. Classic. He said, we are only limited by weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. What does that mean? We have our conscious mind. I'm aware of these thoughts. I'm aware of what's going on. But then we have something underneath, which is the subconscious mind. Arguably, 95% of everything we get in life is what's happening at the subconscious level. And what's filling the subconscious mind is mainstream news, which I call fear porn, social media, doom scrolling, friends, family, and coworkers, billboards, and TV commercials. I'm gonna focus on this right here, billboards and TV commercials. So weakness of attention. This is my mom. She is my superhero. In 2008, when I was 250 pounds, depressed, on the internet looking for ways to end my life, the only reason I didn't end my life was because of her. She didn't know I was going through this, but I was thinking about her, and I didn't want my mom to suffer. She has done so much for me. She's still my superhero. So I didn't take my life, and it's because of her. And she now knows that, but back then she didn't. But there's a challenge with my relationship with my mom. Here's the challenge. Every Thursday, I have dinner with my mom and my fiance. We drive to her apartment in Bay Harbor Islands, and we have dinner. And it's lovely. I love it. I enjoy it. We do it every Thursday unless I'm traveling. But the challenge is this. She has the TV on all the time. And she likes to watch Hallmark, and those TV commercials come on, and it's on the whole time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, statin, Viagra, fast food. It's like all big pharma, big food during the commercials. So I started to think, what percentage of TV commercials, cable TV, are funded by big pharma? What do you think? What do you think that percentage is?
20%.
75. You saw the slides, man. You're close. Yeah, 75% of the ad spend, at least in 2020. It probably went up after COVID. 75% of the ad spend. Now, out of the 195 countries in the world, how many of them allow Big Pharma to do this on TV? Two. Y'all are smart. 2 countries. Yeah, we're number 1. Yeah.
I'm surprised not Australia.
Yeah.
Right?
It's their neighbor. Yeah, I'm surprised too, right? And then what about fast food globally? What percentage of commercials globally, so it's going to be a little bit different, come from fast food? What do you think that is?
60%.
Well, let me word it this way. If in the US it's already 75% Big Pharma, what remaining percentage is going to be fast food after that?
25.
About 20, like all of the rest, yeah. It's somewhere between 11 and 29%, depending on the location. So essentially, this is what I've seen when I'm at my mom's place. This is the challenge here. We have the TV commercials, and it's not just us. We're aware of this, but what about our children? What about people that are not aware of this? It's Big Pharma, so Viagra, Cialis, statin, Little Caesars, Papa John's, Viagra, Cialis. I mean, that's what's going into our subconscious mind. And our environment, the most important thing we could ever do is to clean up our environment, because this is the way it works in terms of our life and our results. Our environment determines our beliefs and our thoughts. Our beliefs and our thoughts determine the actions we take. The actions we take determine the results we get, and essentially our destiny. So when we go back here and clean up the environment, if it's an inflammatory environment, a toxic environment, we're going to have toxic beliefs systems. We're going to have bad thoughts, bad behaviors, bad actions, bad results. We're unhealthy. We die of a heart attack when we're 55 years old. But when we clean up the environment, now we become aware, like Neville Goddard said, weakness of attention, poverty of imagination, we could clean that up. So with my mom, I have the conversation with her, and I'm very gentle, and we do things to make sure that's not being bombarded. And there's things we can do, but I'm just making the point here that it's very important to clean up the environment. Another illustration, how many of you know of this Tufts University food compass? This came out last year from Dr. Mosafarian from Tufts University, and this is called the Food Compass. They were trying, I don't know where it is right now, they were trying to work with President Biden to implement this into our food system, which is a Food Compass rating. And essentially, what you're seeing here is that the items in green are the items they're telling you to be encouraged, eat it, your family should eat it. Items in yellow, moderation. Items in red, very minimal amounts. So at the top here, we see frosted mini wheats in green, chocolate-covered almonds, orange juice, but it has to have the calcium. And then we see in yellow, Lucky Charms, skinless chicken breasts, egg substitute fried in vegetable oil. But if you go down here, you see ground beef and eggs and butter. So what they're telling us is eggs cooked in butter and ground beef is more dangerous to your health than Lucky Charms. Who believes that? Yeah, so this is what we're dealing with. How many of you know this guy? Who's that?
George Costanza.
Costanza, yeah, from Constantia, from Seinfeld. There was an episode on Seinfeld, even if you never watched the show, you'll get it. And George Costanza was a very miserable man, right? He was very unhappy, unhealthy, very angry man. And on this one episode, he had the idea, I hate the results I'm getting in my life. I'm going to do everything opposite, right? So every time I want to do this and I've done it this way, whatever the opposite is, I'm going to do. So if he walked up to a girl in the past at the diner, he would lie about who he is and what he does. So he does the opposite. He would walk up to a girl and say, hey, nice to meet you. My name's George Costanza. I'm bald and I live with my mom. And she actually went on a date with him. And all these things started to improve as a result of doing the opposite. So why do I share this? When we look at what the mainstream media tells us to eat, when we look at what's out there from allopathic medicine when it comes to cholesterol, what the government's telling us to do with nutrition, if we follow George Costanza's method and do the complete opposite, we're going to get better results. So always think that. Costanza effect. Whenever you see the masses teaching something in regards to nutrition, it's usually the opposite. So if you turn this thing upside down, you're pretty much Costanza affecting this thing and you're going to be in the right direction.
Unfortunately, that only lasted 5 episodes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He didn't change his environment enough, right? Yeah, his thoughts and behaviors and beliefs. Okay, so that's why I love this quote. The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. a lot of what we've been taught, especially as it regards to heart disease, we need to unlearn and relearn, and that's why I'm here with you today. So let's talk about cholesterol, the 4 purposes of cholesterol. Number 1, cholesterol is the building blocks for our hormones, and that is very important. This is the cascade. I'm not going to get into this. If you ever did a Dutch test, which is a great hormone test, you could see how cholesterol leads to different building blocks, but you could see how cholesterol, this is the metabolic pathway of cholesterol, what it turns into. Progesterone, pregnenolone, aldosterone, cortisol, testosterone. I mean, it's the building blocks of your hormones. So if you try to lower it, you're kind of suffocating your hormones. You're starving your body and your brain. Number 2, your cell membranes are made up of cholesterol and saturated fat. This is where I'm going to, yes, I got the markers. This is where I'm going to use this. So let me put this here for the camera here. And that's the Zoom. Hello, everybody on Zoom. I forgot to acknowledge you. Thank you for being here, too. Wherever you are, make sure you're paying attention. All right, this is very important. Ooh, I love talking about the cell membrane, right? Phosphatidylcholine, key for the cell membrane. All right, let me show this to you. That is a cell. We have, I don't know, depending on how big the person is, 30 to 70 trillion cells inside of the body. A lot of damn cells, right? Every cell has a lipid bilayer around it. Let me try to, so y'all could see this too. Can everybody see this? You can see it too? Okay. And that's called the cell membrane. Anybody know Dr. Bruce Lipton?
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant. I had him on my podcast a few years ago. Blew my mind. So he calls this, the cell membrane, the cell membrane, because that's where the intelligence is. It's not the DNA. I'm going to show you that in a second. So every cell has your DNA nucleus. So yeah, heart disease runs in my family, Ben. My doctor says that I need to go on a statin. Well, it is true that if heart disease runs in your family, it is true that if cancer runs in your family, autoimmune, obesity, whatever it is, you have the genes. It's true. You can't change that. But more important than that, you could change the expression of those genes. I know I was never taught from my doctor, hey, do you know you could turn off your genes and turn on good genes? So what determines that? The cell membrane. The cell membrane communicates to the DNA to turn off genes and turn on genes. So just because we have cancer or whatever, we didn't hit the genetic lottery does not make us a victim. You know, the message of obesity being a genetic problem is BS. It is not a genetic problem. That is a victim mentality. We have 99% control, at least according to Dr. Bruce Lipton, over the expression, meaning disease is 1% or less only genetics. And the victim mentality does not work, and we see the victim mentality playing out more and more than ever before. And I'll tell you something right now. There was an experiment done where they wanted to see how the victim mentality, how the environment creates the victim mentality. And they took a group of people, and they say, we're going to put you in a job interview, but before we put you in the job interview, we're going to put scars and facial disfigurations on your face. And you're going to let us know if you get discriminated against, if you're the victim of that. So they put these individuals in a makeup room, put all these scars and disfigurations on their face, showed it to them, they saw it. And before they put them into the interview, they said, all right, we have a few more things to touch up. They ended up removing it all. They didn't know that it was removed. They thought they still had the scars. They put them into the job interviews, and they asked all the participants, were you the victim of your facial disfigurations? Were you discriminated against? They all said yes, even though they looked the same way they always looked, because they were enabled to be victims. So the point I'm trying to make is that when we tell people that there's nothing we can do about your genetic disorder or your genetic disease or your disease, it's just genetics, it's a victim mentality. It enables them to believe that. So back to this. Every cell has these receptor sites. There's about 30,000 on one cell. If I drew all 30,000, we'd be here till Monday, but I'll draw 4, and they're called integral membrane proteins, but we're going to call them receptor sites. The job of these receptor sites is similar to a cell phone antenna, to receive a communication and perform a job. So the communication that your cells are listening to all the time comes from your hormones, comes from your thoughts. Your thoughts actually communicate to your cells, and you could change your health by changing your thoughts, the most important thing probably. Nutrients, and then we have other things like oxygen, other things, but I won't get into that. So these are being sent and it's a communication. And then your cells also have these organelles called mitochondria, which produce energy called ATP. So factory of your cells, and that's the gasoline that it's running on, ATP. So when your mitochondria produce energy, you burn fat, you feel good, your brain turns on, etc. But what determines how your body flows, this amazing orchestra, is the cell membrane. And the reason I'm going into this is because I just shared that the cell membrane is made up of cholesterol. So why would we want to strip the body of the intelligence needed for us to function? Does that make sense to anybody?
No.
Makes no sense. But I know why, because $15.4 billion out there to make each year for statins. And when this cell membrane is inflamed, actually I have a red marker for this. When there's cell inflammation, the communication is blocked, and then we have symptoms, and I could go on and on and on. So everything I'm going to teach today is designed to lower cell inflammation, restore the communication, produce energy, feel good, burn fat. Sound good?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. Let's keep going here. Number 3, and I just went over this. Dr. Pompa, if you want to get well, you got to fix the cell. I just showed you exactly what I meant by that. Number 3 is your brain and your nervous system is made of cholesterol. Your nerves are made of cholesterol. The brain is made of cholesterol. That's why when babies are born and they're breastfed, they're actually in a state of ketosis. Breast milk has saturated fat and cholesterol, and it's so important for that neurological development of that baby's brain that it goes in and out of ketosis naturally. And the argument I always get is, but Ben, there's sugar in breast milk. How could that be? And that is correct. But the baby is so efficient at utilizing the sugar, it goes in and out of ketosis, which is the principle behind my book called Keto Flex. And those are 3 PubMed studies that show that. So if you're starving yourself full of cholesterol, you're starving your brain full of what it needs to develop and even thrive. The 4th one is cholesterol makes bile and vitamin D. Bile, so the liver is the soccer mom organ that does everything for us like a soccer mom. I say that in like the most respectful way because soccer moms are amazing and the liver is amazing. So one of those functions is not just burning fat and detoxification, but it's to produce bile to break down fat, and it's just really important to have healthy bile. A lot of us have thick bile. Cholesterol helps that. Vitamin D, we know if your vitamin D levels are low, vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it's a hormone too, but when you have low vitamin D levels, you are going to weaken your immune system. Well, cholesterol helps build up vitamin D. You know the number 1 hormone that blocks vitamin D from being produced? Anybody know? Insulin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you said it. You nailed it. Insulin. So high insulin levels, it doesn't matter how many vitamin D supplements you take, you're not going to change those blood labs. Got to lower insulin. We're going to talk more about that. But why would you want to strip the body away from making bile and vitamin D? It doesn't make sense. Here's a shocker. 2009, this came out, but nobody talks about this. More people die from heart attacks with normal to low cholesterol than high cholesterol. What? 75%. How does that make sense? How many of you know Dr. Nathan Bryan, nitric oxide researcher? Yeah, good friend of mine, awesome guy. Here's his explanation it's a minute long, his explanation to why having a total cholesterol under 200 is bad, dangerously bad. Watch this. That you're more concerned if somebody has a total cholesterol of less than 200 versus somebody who has a higher cholesterol. Explain that and what it does to block nitric oxide.
Our body makes cholesterol, and so our body doesn't make mistakes. If our body needs cholesterol, our body's going to make it upon demand. So we get cholesterol from the diet. We also get it through endogenous production. Cholesterol is also the backbone for things like testosterone, estrogen, vitamin D. So if our cholesterol gets too low, we can't make hormones for vitamin D. We have a global epidemic of testosterone deficiency in men and hormone imbalances in women and vitamin D deficiency. Our body heals itself, right? Our body senses what's going on, then self-corrects. But if we have a drug that inhibits endogenous cholesterol production, which is what a statin does, then our body can't respond. So if it senses that we're not getting enough cholesterol or that we need to make it, then the body can't. And the consequences of that are obviously obvious now.
So I'm going to go over these 10 important markers to get. Some of them are labs, some of them are not. But these are the top 10 things. Like if you could just maybe get these done on a yearly basis, even sooner if you want, you're going to be what Einstein called a genius. Einstein said intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. So I want to empower you all to be geniuses here. So let's start with the first one. Very simple, A1C. Many of you probably do this. It's very standard on annual checkups, but the A1C is the 3-month average of your blood sugar levels. We already have determined already that high blood sugar levels, high insulin levels damages that arterial wall. So we want to test, and it's a blood test. There's also finger pricks. It's very easy to get, and that's going to give you an idea of how well is your body managing glucose. So the percentages, according to a normal standard reference range, is anything below 5.7%. And if you're between 5.7% and 6.4%, you're pre-diabetic. And if you're 6.5% or higher, you are type 2 diabetic. But again, we want to be in the functional range. And I'm going to share that in a second. But here's something dangerous. If your A1C, this study showed if your A1C is 7.5% or higher, every year it's at that level, you lose 100 days off of your lifespan. So if your A1C is at this level or higher, for 15 years, you lose 4 years off your lifespan. I did the math for you. That's how aging glucose is. So here's the functional range we want to hit. 5.2% or lower is what we want to hit. So get the A1C done. That's the marker you want to get. 5.2% or lower is what you want to hit. All right, fasting insulin. Very important marker because arguably the blood sugars will not even change for many, many years, but the fasting insulin will be cranking out, the pancreas will be cranking out insulin. So your blood sugar levels might not change for 10 to 14 years. There's actually a study called the White-Hall study that showed it takes about 14 years before the glucose changes and then they're diagnosed with diabetes. Meanwhile, they have insulin resistance year after year. So if you got the fasting insulin, you would know and you could make a change before it got to that point. So this is how it happens, how insulin resistance and diabetes occurs. And diabetes, I don't have time to get into my story, but it's near and dear to my heart. I lost my dad to the complications of diabetes in 2014. Gave him a massive stroke. He ended up being paralyzed. I watched this for 9 months and he ended up passing away. That's when I really got clear on the focus. So my mission in the next 10 years is to reverse type 2 diabetes in 1 million people. And we're going to keep track of each person. And if you know anybody who's type 2 diabetic, please send them to me if they're open to changing, because that is the mission. But this is how it happens. First of all, let's ask the question, in the human body, what's considered an optimal state? How much sugar, glucose, does the body consider optimal? And in the bloodstream, it's 1 teaspoon of sugar in the entire bloodstream. That's considered an optimal state. So what does that mean? If you wore a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, or tested your glucose, that's 80 milligrams per deciliter. When you're fasted, that's considered optimal. When you eat, it changes. We also store sugar in our liver and muscle cells, and of course, depending on how much muscles you have, you could store more. That's why building muscle is really great, because it acts as a sponge. You have more flexibility to get away with things. But on average, the liver stores about 25 to 30 teaspoons of sugar, and the average person stores about 100 teaspoons in their muscle cells. So that's called your glycogen stores. But let's discuss now what the average person eats in America. Jamba Juice, acai bowl. These are actual metrics from Chronometer, which is a great food tracking app. And 20 teaspoons of sugar, 99 grams, in a bowl of an acai bowl from Jamba Juice. Lucky Charms, I put this on there because that chart that said was healthier than red meat. In 2 servings, it's 60 grams of sugar, 12 teaspoons from Lucky Charms. Oatmeal, not to mention that most oatmeal is sprayed with pesticides, but besides that, 2 servings, 10.4 teaspoons of sugar, 52 grams. Orange juice, 2 cups is 10.4 teaspoons, 52 grams. And the average American eats 17 to 23 times per day. It sounds like a made-up stat, right? How is that even possible? Well, my definition here of eating is any time you raise glucose and insulin. So it's the snacking, the grazing. Every time we eat something, even if it's carrot sticks with hummus, if people think that's healthy, it's a meal. So they're not eating 17 to 23 meals, full meals per day, but they're eating 17 to 23 times per day. What do you think that's what's going to happen to our insulin levels and blood sugar levels if we do that? Spikes insulin. And the average person's eating 300 grams of carbs per day. So what's going to happen? This is the analogy I got from my friend Dr. Jason Fung. It's like you put on headphones, and Eric, what's your favorite band, musician, artist, music?
Nonpoint, right here from Fort Lauderdale.
What are they called?
Nonpoint.
Nonpoint. Okay, so let's say we grab Nonpoint's Spotify music, and we put on the headphones and we're listening to Nonpoint nonstop. Nonpoint nonstop, that's good. But we don't take a break from listening to it. So we have the music in our ears 24/7, let's say 50% volume, but we don't take a break listening to Nonpoint nonstop, going to bed with it. After about a week or so, I'm going to feel like the volume is decreasing, right? Like, because I'm just not taking a break from the music in my ears. I'm going to feel like I need to increase the volume to get the same effect. So after a week, I take the volume from 50% to 60%, thinking that's the solution, just increase the volume. But I don't take a break from listening to music. So after a month, same problem. I got to increase the volume and increase the volume. So what's happening here? I'm going deaf to the music. What's happening with type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance? We are going deaf in terms of insulin being cranked out and screaming at us all day long, that music, eating high carbs all day long, and eventually those receptor sites get deaf. So the pancreas is the Spotify music app, and the insulin receptor sites is my ears. So if that's the cause of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, what's the solution? Dial down the music, take a break from Nonpoint. Just stop listening to it. And how do you do that? Keto and fasting. 2 powerful ways to lower glucose and insulin. And I have study after study showing how effective a keto diet and fasting is for type 2 diabetes, more than any medication in the world. But of course, there's no money, it's not sexy. And I'm not going to talk about keto today, and I teach it very differently. We did a workshop here before about that. But I would say this, not all keto diets are the same. There's a lot of people who do it wrong. I would argue that with the popularity of keto, more people actually get harmed by keto than doing it the right way, just because they eat the wrong fats to do it the wrong way. So one of the things that I wanted to solve in terms of like a problem that I had is I hate to cook, but I know that preparing your food and cooking your food is the best way to do it. How do I prepare keto foods that are healthy, quick? Because if I look at an ingredient list and it's long, I'm not going to do it. So anyways, I created this thing called the Keto Recipe of the Week. And if you want to learn about it or get it, I'm working with a food journalist. It's already out there. It's it's $9.97 a month. But if you know somebody who's diabetic, I would get them on this plan. How it works, every week they'll get a recipe that's formulated to be protein focused, keto macros, no seed oils, no high oxalate plant foods out there. This is what I eat personally. So I wanted to offer it to you. It's ketocampresrecipes.com if you're watching on the Zoom as well. So the next thing is fasting insulin. I talked about that, and we want to make sure that the fasting insulin, so the reference range is anything less than 25. But if you're 15, you are insulin resistant. So where you want to be is between 3 and 7. When I did my labs day 1 on carnivore, it was actually 3 point something, and on day 90 I was 3 point something as well. So pretty stable. So a fasting insulin is a blood test. Get it done, arguably even more important than an A1C, because it shows you what's happening before the A1C changes. Okay, next one is an inflammatory marker called homocysteine. Homocysteine has been linked to many health problems, including diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. So when homocysteine cannot be converted to other compounds, it builds up in the body and causes damage to the arterial wall, also to the blood vessels in the brain. And B vitamins play a very important role here. So if anybody has done a genetic test and they have MTHFR, I'm not cursing at you, MTHFR, this really is affected by it, but it doesn't mean like you're being defined by your genetics. It just means you take some methylated B vitamins. And so you really want to, I've noticed when I look at labs and I see somebody doing a lot of things right, but their homocysteine is high, they probably have that genetic SNP. And the simple solution is do some things to help with methylation. So B vitamins, there's methyl donors you could take. Methylation is simply your innate intelligence putting a barcode on things that need to be removed, toxic estrogens, toxins, etc. And when you don't have the immune system or the human body actually functioning well, it misses certain things. It doesn't put barcodes. So homocysteine, you want this between 5 and 7. I would say single digits in general, but they're saying standard reference range is 14.5. You want it in the single digits. Again, if you see yours high, probably just going on some good B vitamins might do the trick. That's all you probably need to do. But monitor that, because if it stays high for a long period of time, that could lead to damage to the blood vessels. This one is arguably very important. A lot of conventional doctors, so it's high sensitivity C-reactive protein. A lot of conventional doctors use this as the marker to assess cardiovascular risk, like the marker, which is insane that you use one marker for that, but it is a good marker to get, don't get me wrong, but we want to look at the full picture. On day 1 of my carnivore, my C-reactive protein was 0.4, really optimal. And then I went 90 days of eating nothing but meat and saturated fat, eggs. And what do you think happened on day 90? 0.5. Optimal, like nothing changed. So, oh, what's happening here?
You get the last slide?
No, I have more. Yeah. So this is looking, so what it's looking at, I'll just tell you this. The optimal range is anything between under 1. That was the next slide. Anything under 1. If you're over, what?
Try it now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The magic touch right there. The standard reference range is 0 to 3. I would say anything under 1 is really good. 0.5 is even better. So that's where I was hovering. So get that done. It's called HSCRP. It's a blood test, easy to do. This one right here is what your conventional doctor wants to look at when it comes to heart disease. So that's a good test to get done. HDL. HDL is called the good cholesterol, which I guess could be accurate, but there's some great studies I put there for you that show what it does to reduce oxidative stress, improving cell insulin sensitivity. It is protective. We know that for sure. It's a lipoprotein that's very protective. So we want to get an HDL-C count, which is high density lipoprotein count, and you want to see that between 60 and 90. Their standard reference range is 35 to 65 for women and 35 to 80 for men, but I would say you want that 60 to 90. I'm going to give you some tips here on how to raise that. This will be good for your husband too, by the way. So how do you raise HDL cholesterol? This is a question I get asked a lot. So you want to lower your visceral fat. That's very important. I learned this from my friend Dr. Sean O'Mara. So you do that by doing keto, carnivore, fasting, weightlifting, sprinting is great for that, quality sleep, no alcohol, I know, I'm sorry. And then limiting your seed oils is very, very important with that. So as you do that, it'll naturally raise your HDL and all the other markers will improve too. And seed oils are a big issue, and I have a gift for you in a second. But seed oils, as you can see, there's a strong correlation, not causation, but strong correlation between when they started introducing seed oils and disease. A lot of disease that we've seen rise up at the same time. So seed oils, I asked Dr. Kate Shanahan. Anybody know Dr. Kate Shanahan, deep nutrition author? Nobody knows Dr. Kate? Yeah, okay, 2 of you. Wow. Okay, so she's amazing. She has a great book. I would recommend everybody read it called Deep Nutrition. Fantastic book. I was actually listening to it again on the car right here. But she's a friend of mine. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She was Kobe Bryant's nutritionist for the Los Angeles Lakers when Kobe was alive. And I said, Dr. Kate, I interviewed her a few times. Dr. Kate, which scenario will cause heart disease faster? The first scenario, smoking cigarettes every day. The second scenario, eating processed sugar every day. And the third scenario, eating vegetable oils every day. What did she say? Yes, y'all are smart. She actually laughed and said, that's an easy question, Ben. It's the vegetable oils, hands down. She said, look, smoking is not good for you, but you're not accumulating that cigarette smoke in your body fat. The damage is done right there. Eating sugar. What happens when you eat a donut? Blood sugar goes up, 2 hours later, back to normal. So the damage is done pretty much. But if you do it often enough, it is a problem. But not as bad as these vegetable oils because the linoleic acid found, and again, I'm going to make a clear point here. It's not that linoleic acid and seed oils are bad for you. It's the production of linoleic acid and seed oils that make it bad for us. It's the adulterated versions. Not all seed oils are bad for us. It's when they're heated and using chemical agents. So that's what I'm referring to here. So linoleic acid, you could stop eating these rancid fats today, and 680 days later, 2 years, you could still find them around your mitochondrial membrane, your cell membrane, creating inflammation and disease. But you know what is one of the best ways to accelerate the removal of linoleic acid? Get a PCIV. Seriously, this is one of the best ways to regenerate the membrane. It's one of the best things you can do. So I take this, well, I don't do the IV, phosphatidylcholine. I take the PC oil from Body Bio. But fasting could help. Getting autophagy could help. It'll accelerate the removal. So the goal is to get rid of those seed oils because you can see how damaging they are. Here's a list of the ones we want to avoid. Canola oil called rapeseed oil in the UK. If anybody on Zoom is in UK, if you are, that's super cool. Corn oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, peanut oil, sunflower oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, and I know the last one is a surprise, but fish oil is not, in general, not good for us. It's actually arguably more unstable than a vegetable oil. It has more double bonds. So eat the fish. do some things to give your body the building blocks to make its own fish oil, which it can do, but I am not a fan of fish oil. We could talk more about that during the Q&A. We talked about it last time. I think it was a little controversial last time. And then here are the healthy fats, saturated fats and monounsaturated fats. You want to take a photo of that. In general, when it comes to cooking, animal fats are always better. So butter, ghee, duck fat, lard that's not hydrogenated, beef tallow, that's going to do better for high heat cooking. And the olive oil, the avocado oil, and the coconut oil will be better for salad dressings and dips. Does that mean you should never cook with olive oil and avocado oil? No. If you find a quality one, it could withstand the temperature. But in general, you want to cook with the healthy fats, the animal fats. When I go to restaurants, I have been telling the servers for years that I'm allergic to vegetable oils. And whenever I do it, my fiance always rolls her eyes. But it works, because if you tell them that you're allergic versus your preference, they're going to listen to you. They don't want to get sued, right? So I've been doing this for years, and Gloria's in my Keto Camp Academy. She knows this, and I tell all of my students all the time, do the same thing. Tell them you're allergic. And I find out that they don't all do it. They feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. So what I have done is I developed, and this is the gift for you all, a seed oil allergy card that looks like this. It says, I have food allergies. Dear chef, I have food allergies to vegetable oils. In order for me to avoid an allergic reaction, I must avoid the items marked in red. So it has all those bad fats I mentioned. The ones in green are safe, olive oil, etc. Please make sure the approved alternatives are not cut with the allergic ones. So if you're watching on the Zoom, you could go to seedoilcard.com and get the free digital download for that. But for you all here, since you're here in person, take a couple and pass it down. That's for you all. Enjoy it. Use it wisely, and it'll make a big difference for you.
And also, like, due diligence. Aren't a lot of these companies lying about the oil? I've seen like a lot of these. They'll say it's olive oil,
and it's cut.
Avocado.
Correct. That's why I have this here. Make sure they're not cut. You're absolutely right on.
Even store-bought
yes.
stuff.
Yeah, you want to look and make sure it's 100% olive oil in a dark glass bottle. Yeah. That's good, yeah. That's great, yeah. So Seed Oil Scout is a great app. It tells you which restaurants have seed oils or not. But it's hard though, right? Because sometimes you're at a restaurant and you're with friends and they don't have the app and they invited you there, right? So this is the thing you do. And they'll tell you, this works like, I used it last night at a restaurant. These are the things you can order. Usually you can't have the fried stuff, but they'll tell you the options. But let's continue here. So here are 7 foods proven by science to raise HDL. Number 1, wild-caught salmon and sardines. Organic olive oil, again, make sure it's not cut. Make sure it's first pressed is best, dark glass bottle. Organic coconut oil, grass-fed butter and ghee. Organic meat and organ meat, pastured eggs and avocado. So rotate those, throw them into the mix. These will raise HDL cholesterol. Next, we have triglycerides. Triglycerides, your body could either use them for energy or store them as body fat. And high triglyceride levels will be inflammatory. So what are high triglyceride levels? Standard reference range is anything under 150. Functional range is anything under 90. We want to get our triglycerides under 90. How do you lower triglycerides? Popular question I get asked. It's very similar to the previous thing. Lower visceral body fat. Keto, carnivore, fasting, weightlifting, sprinting, quality sleep, no alcohol, limit seed oils, Vasper machine, red light, all the things they have here, like all that will help for sure. That's how you lower triglycerides. Then, this is a very important test. You get your total triglycerides, divide it by your total HDL, and you want to get the ratio. So let's do an example of that. In my office this morning drawing this out for you, but I'm not the best artist, so that's my vehicle. But let me show this to you. When you get a total LDL, it's pretty much looking at how much cholesterol is in an LDL particle. So if you have a lot of cholesterol within an LDL particle, they will say it's high cholesterol. They say anything over 90 is high cholesterol. If you have a small amount of cholesterol in a single LDL particle, they'll say you have low LDL. But here's the point. If you were in a vehicle with several people, like this illustration here, and you were in a traffic jam, I-95 here, what is more important to getting out of that traffic jam, looking at the number of people inside of vehicles or the number of cars on the road? Cars on the road, obviously, right? So with total LDL, you're looking at how many people are in the vehicle. We want to know how many cars are on the road. Particle sizes show how many cars are on the road. So there's a test called NMR. I don't know if I wrote this here. I think I might have. Let's see. No.
Well, you put it on the top.
Oh, did I? Did I have it there? What was it?
It's on the top.
Oh, yeah. Duh. It's right there. So, yeah. Nuclear magnetic resonance, NMR protocol, NMR LDL test. And what it does, it's going to show you that size does matter. Size matters in this scenario. So LDL pattern B means bad. Always remember that. LDL pattern B means bad. That means you're getting a lot of small, sticky LDL particles. But if the majority of those LDL particles, the cars on the road, remember, are actually pattern A, that's large and fluffy. So if you have a lot of large and fluffy, if this is your arteries, those large and fluffy actually build your immune system, clear out plaque. They actually flow right through your arteries. There's no problem. But when you have a lot of the small and sticky B pattern, those get lodged into your arteries. So there's a study this documentary that just came out. How many of you have heard about it? The vegan one, We Are What We Eat or something like that? Yeah. They're focused on total LDL. And I just showed you it doesn't mean crap, right? So if they had looked at the small, then it would have made a strong case. But the small LDL actually gets lodged there. So we want the small LDL to be under, what was it? Here we go, under 527. That is the bad one. Don't worry about total LDL. I'll tell you this, I just finished up 90 Days of Carnivore. My total LDL was 350. If a cardiologist saw that, they would have said, dude, you're about to have a heart attack. You need to get on a statin. But I did the NMR, and I was actually under 500 with my small dense. I was over 3,000 with my LDL particles, but almost all of them were the large and fluffy. My body was just burning fat, using fat. I was in the optimal range. So I had these, not the small and sticky, but you wouldn't know that. So LabCorp has this test, NMR. It's not typically covered by insurance. You could get it out of pocket. If anybody needs help with this, you could email me, support@ketocamp.com, camp with the K. I could help you get this. But that is arguably one of the most important tests you can get. Blood pressure is next. We're going to wrap this up soon, and then we're going to go through some questions. Blood pressure is the next thing. And let me get this out of the way. Like Dr. Ovadia mentioned, if blood pressure will damage your arterial wall. It'll create blood vessel damage. So anybody check blood pressure often? Okay, awesome. I love it. So I simply have a blood pressure cuff that I bought on Amazon for like $60, and you could test throughout the day. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's 120 or 80 is where you want to be, or lower. If you do it after exercise, it'll be a little higher. But insulin resistance, high insulin levels, is one of the root cause drivers of high blood pressure. So as you lower insulin, you'll lower your blood pressure. And here is something else that's surprising that raises high blood pressure. This is Dr. Nathan.
So when you disrupt the oral microbiome, it shuts down nitric oxide production. We published, I believe it was in 2012, that if you use mouthwash, your blood pressure goes up. I was on the doctor's show several years ago revealing that if you use mouthwash, you lose the cardioprotective benefits of exercise. So think about this. You try to do all the right things. You try to eat a good diet. You try to get moderate physical exercise. But if you use in mouthwash, you eliminate the entire cardioprotective benefits of everything you're doing. So, there's a reason we don't take an antibiotic every day for the rest of our lives, because of the disruption in the gut microbiome.
It's like dropping a nuke. It'll take care of the bad guys that we want to get to, but also the civilians that...
Yeah, it's collateral damage that causes systemic... It wreaks havoc on the body. The microbiome, the bacteria that live in and on our body, outnumber on cells 10 to 1. Mm-hmm. So we eradicate those to our own demise. So we have to maintain a healthy microbiome.
So that's antiseptic mouthwash, Listerine, etc., Scope, not necessarily like essential oil mouthwash. So that's something to be aware of if you know anybody who uses that sort of mouthwash. The ultimate test, let's say your doctor is just pushing that statin. The ultimate way, the ultimate test, the best test you could ever do to understand if you are at risk is to get this test, coronary calcium score. That's what it looks like. It takes less than 5 minutes. It's non-invasive, but it's going to look if any calcium is built up in your arteries. It's going to give you a score. We want a score of 0, obviously. And then you can see, as we develop plaque, it'll tell you, and the more plaque you have, the more at risk you are of heart disease. And this test is not covered by insurance, but it's not expensive. It's like $99, and there's a whole bunch of places here in South Florida. They're all over the place. Yeah, it just takes 5 minutes of your time. Well, longer to drive there and all that, but it's $100 on average.
Do you need a doctor order to get one of those?
You sometime, most of the time you do, yeah. So if you're working with a practitioner, they should be able to get it for you. There's some workarounds there, but yeah, typically yes. But that, and it's so stupid, right? It's like, so if your doctor is pushing this statin, have him or her write that order and say, let's see, doc, let's see if I actually have, and then you can make a decision if you want to go on a statin or not. But that's the ultimate test. Now, there's something else to consider here as I wrap this up. You know, what would you, most people would say, like we spoke about, the primary cause of heart attacks and strokes are obesity, smoking, bad fats, high cholesterol. We know that's not true, but that's the general consensus. But you know, there was a book that came out in 1988, Dr. Larry Dossey, medical doctor, and they predicted with 85%, well, with accuracy, that 85% of the time they could find out when somebody had their first heart attack and stroke. It happened Monday morning between 8 and 9 a.m. That's when 85% of most people had their first heart attack and stroke. What do they have in common here? Going to jobs they hate, being stressed out, being angry, being bitter. You see, there's so much value, health benefits to living on purpose with our purpose. Would you agree? You have the energy to do what you want to do. You have the vitality. I don't think we have an obesity crisis because of what these people are eating. I think we have an obesity crisis because of what is eating them. I think they're lacking a purpose. And Robert Heinlein said, in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by daily trivia. Those are bad behaviors. It's smoking, it's addiction, etc. But when you become clear on your values, you know, having an addiction, by the way, and this is controversial, somebody who was addicted to different things, having the ability to be addicted to something is a superpower when you are clear on your purpose, because you could use that energy and transfer it to something great, right? And I think a lot of people have addictive behaviors, but they're doing things they hate to do, right? This is an example that stress will cause heart disease, and most people, they tiptoe their way through life hoping to land safely on death's door, and I don't want to live that way. You know, I want to live full and I want to die empty. I want to give it all I got. And lastly, I'm going to share, and if you know the supplement, don't share it and ruin it, but the best supplement that you could take if you want to really lower your risk of heart disease, lower blood pressure, etc., is a great supplement called vitamin G. I didn't see it in the front. We'll get some bottles though. So vitamin G has been shown to lower blood pressure. We just made the case that that's important. People who take vitamin G have 16% lower diastolic blood pressure and 10% lower systolic than those who don't take vitamin G. This one showed people who take vitamin G have lower blood sugar levels, A1C levels, than those who do not. And there's more studies, by the way, like Dr. Joe Dispenza looked at brain scans and he saw oxytocin, serotonin, and GABA. So where do you get the vitamin G? What is vitamin G? Gratitude. It's not woo-woo. Those are studies on gratitude, because it's a universal law that states what you feed energy to expands, what you appreciate appreciates.
You get at the Biohack Lab.
That's what I was
That is true.
That's exactly what I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
that's
I
right.
felt it.
You get it as soon as you walk here, right? Yeah, you're
I
right.
felt it.
So the last thing here I'll share with you is if you don't believe me, believe her, because she has lived a long life and she says vitamin G is the reason why. Check this out.
How do you think you've lived to be 97? Like, how do you think you made it this many years?
I don't know. Because I'm naughty. I eat sugar. I eat butter. I eat things that I should not eat. And I have all my life.
Well, what do you think is the secret? You know, people ask me and I tell them that you pray a lot, you have faith.
I do have faith, yes. I really spend, I cannot end my day without being grateful. I never take anything for granted.
So that's probably the secret. That's how you've lived to be 97.
I don't know.
Because you never end your day without being grateful.
I don't know. I really don't.
You have a lot of gratitude in your heart.
Yes.
So the Zoom didn't get that audio? Okay. Gratitude. Yeah, how cute is that? So I want you all to get your right hand like this. If you're watching on Zoom, do the same thing. Right hand up, everybody. Y'all too. Right hand up. Put your hand up. Yep. Put it over. Do it over right ear like that. Leave it there as I say this. You are a masterpiece because you are a piece of the master. Your body is built to be self-healing. Don't let social media, conventional wisdom dissuade you of your body's innate ability to heal itself. You can remove your hands. Why did I do that? I didn't want it to go in one ear and out the other ear. Keep it there. Thank you guys so much. We'll do some questions now. Thank you all so much. Okay, what are some questions based off of today? What answers can I have for you? Hopefully I have some answers. Any questions? Okay, go ahead.
One of the tests I hear to do is also the lipoprotein little a. Is that?
Yeah, very similar to the particle size. Great test to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to look at the particles, and that'll give you the patterns. Same thing. So you want to make sure you have a low amount of the B pattern and a good amount of the A. So small and sticky, B means bad. Large and fluffy, A good.
So that's what lipoprotein B is. If you have a high B, even if you have an A pattern.
Yeah.
High B.
Correct. And you also want to look at the percentages of like your total particles and then the percentages of each of those patterns. Yeah. So, yes, yeah.
Could we repeat the questions?
Oh, yes, got it. Yeah, so
only because you
understood.
Have the
The question was, what about a lipoparticle protein test? And I was saying it's similar to the patterns here we want to look at. So when you're looking at those tests, you want to put the whole picture together. It's not just getting this and saying, okay, this is high, I have an issue. It's looking at your inflammatory markers. It's looking at your insulin. It's looking at your A1C. It's the full picture that I outlined today. It's not just one individual marker. If there is going to be one individual marker, it's that coronary artery score. That's it. That's like the ultimate thing. Like, hey, 0%. And I know people who have done carnivore, like Dr. Avadia and different people, and we know different people, Eric, that have done carnivore for years. They do that calcium score, 0, because they stay away from seed oils. They have low insulin levels, low inflammatory levels. So we want to look at the full picture, the inflammation and all that. Go ahead, Eric.
I did my calcium score test 5 years ago. It was 1,400.
So Eric did his calcium score 5 years ago. It was 1,400?
1,400. Cardiologist, statins, stents, all that. I walked away. Ketogenic. Saved my life. I'm coming up on another CAT score coming up in 2 weeks. I'm really interested to see how it compares to the 5 years from cardio.
You haven't done it since?
Haven't done it since.
Wow, 1,400 is very high.
Yeah.
So you have a similar story, which I'll have Gloria share in a second. So on Zoom, if you missed that, Eric, Keto 5.0, did a calcium score 5 years ago. It was 1,400, went keto, carnivore, et cetera. You're about to do another one to see what has changed, because it can lower. You can lower it.
And one of the things he told me was I was going to have a 9% chance of having a heart episode in the next 10 years. I remember thinking that's a 91% chance I'm not.
Yeah,
that's
it.
Used it.
Yeah.
And it's just you got to dive into it. You got to understand this stuff. It's your life. It's your
That's
body.
right. Yeah, that's the mindset right there.
But if you would have continued where you were, you would have already had one by now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. If you would have continued, yeah. So go ahead, Gloria. You have a similar story.
I was actually going to
Yeah.
say about the reversing, but I did a CAC score and I was 130, which I was also told that that's kind of indicative of how I ate in my past life. 'Cause
Correct.
It's damage.
Yeah.
And when I did it again within a year, eating carnivore, and I'm 98% carnivore, ketovore. It was 85.
Is the mic here for Zoom, or is it?
No, it's
Oh, okay, sorry.
So it was 85, which is again not the best, but
So it was 140 and it went down to 85.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can't, most conventional doctors will tell you can't reverse that score. And you're proof. There's several other people that are proof of that. We'll see what happens with yours. I imagine
Very
it's gone down.
interesting.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
So to that point, I had a CAC score last November because I had COVID and had some cardiology issues from that. So I had the full workup. And at my age, I was anticipating something bad, plus my past life. I'm a Southerner. I've eaten a lot of greasy stuff in my past life. My score was 0.
Yeah.
I've been on a ketogenic diet, and I'm an OMOD right now.
Nice. 1 meal a
for
day.
2 years.
So you've been doing 1 meal a day in keto for 2 years. You did a calcium score. I'm just repeating for the Zoom.
0.
And you're a 0
It's
score.
right here on my phone if you want to see.
Now I believe you. Yeah, I love that.
So
How much did you?
I wondered maybe the machine wasn't working.
Right.
So,
Wondering if the machine wasn't working.
They
How?
should have the IV
Did you need a prescription for it? You needed a prescription for it to do the score? Did somebody have to write you a prescription for it?
I did, but it's funny you should mention that because once I got there, I had a $99 copay.
Oh, nice.
Even though I had a prescription.
That's awesome. Yeah, so that's the way to do it, to get that score done, to get that test done. Did you have a question? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on supplements like Triglycerides, berberine, anything, or do you just prefer whole foods and just stick to that?
I'm always, so the question was, what are my thoughts on supplements, ready yeast rice, berberine, et cetera, to help optimize these markers? There's some research to show it could help. You know, ready yeast rice could lower some of the bad cholesterol. Berberine could raise HDL. So that definitely is a option, but I'm always a fan of doing the lifestyle stuff first. Supplements is to supplement all the other stuff. I'm not against it though. So I think berberine is also great for lowering blood sugar. I like dihydroberberine more than regular berberine, but I'm a fan of that. I wouldn't do it long term though. I'm a big fan of supplement rotation, but doing it with all the other stuff that I mentioned. Yeah. No, there was one back here, and then I'll go to you. Yeah.
Is 1 meal a day in the ketogenic lifestyle safe for like cycling women who are trying to procreate? When if you have decent high cholesterol, you're eating good fats. I've been told not to fast. I've been told to eat every 3 hours and what have you. I can't. I don't do that. But I am trying to conceive. So is it
Awesome.
affect me if I'm eating 1 meal a day?
Yeah. So the question is, as a woman who's trying to conceive. Is it dangerous to do, or is it bad to do 1 meal a day? You've been told that you want to eat every 3 hours. 1 meal a day is, for women who have a menstrual cycle, is not ideal, especially not long term. Now, there are some times during the cycle that would be fine, like the first 2 weeks, to sprinkle in some 1 meal a day. So that would mean the week of the period, the week after. The other 2 weeks, you don't want to do too much fasting. You want to build progesterone and estrogen, and helps with that monthly cycle. But the first week or the second week to throw in some 1 meal a days are fine. The issue with doing it every day, and I know that you've been doing it, but the challenge with it every day is, number one, you're not going to get enough protein. Protein is very important for men and women. You want to get 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So let's say that's 120 pounds, 120 grams. It's very hard to get 120 grams in one. I can do it, but most people, 120 grams in one. So. Yeah, exactly. So you're going to be in a protein deficit, and protein is arguably the most important macronutrient, even on keto. So I'm okay with that some days, on the right days, to be in that deficit and to do OMAD, but you don't even want to do keto and fasting the week before the period. That's the week 7 days before, no keto, no fasting, more healthy, higher carbs, and then you kind of go with that rhythm. So it's based off of that hormonal cycle. That's how we work with the hormones versus working against it. In my book, Keto Flex, I have a chapter 12, which outlines that for women. It's a week by week breakdown for menstruating women, and then I have a section for postmenopausal women too. Yeah.
You might also be interested in Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy.
Yeah, Mindy. Yeah, good. Great book, great protocol. She's great. She's in the book too. Yeah.
She just promotes a lot of seeds and stuff in the follicular phase, and I'm mostly eating meat.
Yeah, you could just do it without the seed stuff. I get it. Yeah, you don't have to do the seeds. But Mindy's a fantastic resource. Yeah. And you had a question, right?
With like the berberine and the supplements, though, they can lower body weight, but isn't it also that you're losing like muscle and they can also make you lose, like, it's not just fat you're losing with like metformin or berberine.
Well, berberine is different. So you're thinking of semaglutide and those different peptides.
Berberine's like a natural version almost of metformin, right?
It is, but it's not as bad. Okay. It doesn't have as many side effects. Cyclical berberine, it's not a bad thing like that. Arguably, though, if you take too much berberine, it could lower your diversity in your gut, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a problem, but cyclically is fine. So how I use berberine on days that I'm eating higher carbs, right before the meal, I'll have
Just the days before.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm eating cake.
Exactly, yeah. Hopefully you don't do too much of that.
No.
Yeah.
So I was on a very strict paleo diet for about 16 months, and I lost 20 pounds. And I want to put on muscle mass.
Yeah.
So how do I, or keto diet's pretty similar, right? Paleo?
There's some similarities, yeah.
So how do I increase my weight, yet like fasting or doing 1 meal a day, I wouldn't be able to put on muscle mass?
No, not with 1 meal a day and too much fasting. So the question is,
so how do
you lost 20 pounds doing 16 months of paleo.
Yeah.
You want to actually gain.
I was eating 4 meals a day and I still lost that much.
Yeah, that's great. You look great, by the way. So you want to put on.
I put on. I put on
Got
about 15 pounds.
You
I
put
was
on 15
250,
pounds.
250.
You want to put on more healthy weight.
Yes.
So you want to get, so what is your goal weight that you want to get to? What do you want to?
155.
Yeah, so that's simple. You want to consume 155 grams of protein per day, most days. And you can't do that if you do too much fasting. So now you want to feast, right? So if that's it, you want 155 grams of protein in your case. So what you do is you put a typical day's worth of eating in like an app like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal and see if you're hitting that ratio. Now, there's a big difference between protein from vegetable, like plant protein, and animal protein. Animal protein is far superior. So you want to, the goal is to hit there, work on the gut digestion to make sure you're assimilating it. So maybe taking some HDL or different supplements to help break it down.
I have no problem
with breaking down protein? Yeah, so then just hit that. That means you got to do less fasting in this scenario. So you could do that maybe between 2 meals, get about 75 to 80 grams of protein between 2 meals, and you could still have a little fasting window and an eating window. And now if it's hard for anybody to hit the protein requirements, because I get it, it might be, taking some amino acids could fill the gaps, like perfect aminos is a great way to do that, or any other high quality aminos. It's a great way to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, Natasha?
I have some Zoom questions.
Yeah, Zoom. Let's not forget about the Zoom. What do we have?
Where can we do those tests that you spoke about? And is there somewhere on your website where we can see the list?
The test would be, you would order that through a doctor or a practitioner. So it would be whoever they're, are they hearing me here? Where am I talking? Okay, yeah. So the test would be ordered through a practitioner. There are some websites that have consumers order it as well. Anybody know that? Ulta Labs, I think Direct Labs, there's a few other ones. If you want my presentation slides, because you didn't take enough notes, I told you to take enough notes, but if you could just email me, for you two, support@ketocamp.com, camp with a K, and I'll get you the presentation slides.
We will put it on YouTube as well,
Oh.
your slides on the YouTube channel.
So the Biohack, is it Biohack Lab on YouTube?
Yeah.
So Biohack Lab on YouTube, you can watch the presentation is going to be there as well? Yeah, oh, cool. And then the slides will be there as well. Yeah.
So right out front, Biohack Lab, through Life Extension, has a whole laundry list, 4 or 5 pages long of blood tests.
Yeah.
Now I'm assuming that's all out of pocket.
Yes, it is out of pocket.
It's out of pocket.
Yeah.
But some of them are not that expensive.
They're not. Like a fasting insulin is like 30 bucks. Yeah.
You know.
It's an investment.
So the folks that don't know, there's a whole list out there. I've got it, and I plan on going to Life Extension. And I was told that through here, there's a discount off of those prices.
Yeah,
Cool.
correct. 20% at Life Extension if you mention the Biohack Lab.
So Life Extension, you could use Biohack Lab as a discount.
Test you do
They have it all.
Plus 100 more
Yeah.
are on that sheet out
There you go.
So I plan on doing it soon.
I also wanted to add that we have Dr. Sienna also, who is able to get those prescriptions as well.
Use her.
She's on site, and then you can after also ask her a couple questions if you need to.
But I'm assuming if you pay out of pocket, you don't need a prescription, right?
No, you don't, except for the coronary artery score. You might need that one.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, you don't. Yeah, you don't.
The advanced lipid panel, the Cardio IQ on Ulta Labs test is $137, and they always give you a 20% off coupon, so that's about $110.
It's good. That's nothing.
That gives you the
Yeah.
full size and
Yeah, that's the cool thing about a lot of options these days. All right, yes, next question.
I'm just looking around the room, and there's so many women here, and
Yeah.
women are vastly having issues with their thyroid.
Yeah.
Can you talk about thyroid and cholesterol and the connection there?
Yeah, the thyroid is the canary in the coal mine, right? It's like the first thing to go. If you know that reference, they used to put canaries in the coal mines, and if the canaries would drop dead, they would signal to the workers, "Get out! There's a leak." So we know that the brain, and I don't know how to draw a brain, so I'm just going to do that. But the is what stimulates that thyroid, this little butterfly-shaped gland. So I don't know how to draw that, but let's just say that's the thyroid. But we know the brain, the hypothalamus pituitary, stimulates the thyroid gland, and different parts like the liver start producing. So TSH is what is measured when you look at the stimulation, the communication between the brain and the thyroid. So thyroid stimulating hormone. And then what's produced is T4. So T4 is the inactive version of thyroid. It can't really be used by your cells. Your cells need, remember I shared those receptor sites, it needs T3, the activated version to actually get into the cell. Very important for the mitochondria, very important for everything. So that conversion needs to happen. And the issue is when you have, to your point, a liver that is fatty liver or sluggish liver, the liver helps make that conversion right there. So we want to make sure our liver is functioning. So if you're doing your lab test and your doctor says your thyroid is off, they're not looking at your liver, that's a red flag. We want to see, okay, why is it? Is it because the liver is not converting T4 to T3? And then the other thing to consider is that reverse T3, RT3, reverse T3 is also something you want to measure too when you're getting lab work done, because if you are converting and you have good amount of T3, but your doctor never got the reverse T3 and you still don't feel well, it might be that your reverse T3 is high. And reverse T3 looks just like T3 and it blocks T3 from getting in. And the reason reverse T3 goes up is because of stress. And that's mental stress, emotional stress, chemical stress, etc. So to your point, liver is important, and there's, phosphatidylcholine, amazing for the liver. Coffee enema, TUDCA, bitters, castor oil pack. Yeah, these are amazing things for the liver. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, it was more about the thyroid and cholesterol, less about liver.
Yeah, well, the cholesterol is a part of that. Yeah, it's a whole part of the system here, right? So yeah, that, to your point, the cholesterol helps the liver produce the bile. It helps to detoxify. Everything's connected, right? So with low cholesterol or damaged cholesterol, it'll affect the thyroid. It'll affect the whole system. Cruciferous vegetables, yeah, for some people, yeah, some people who could process them the right way and they have a healthy.
The people consuming too many, like too much kale or.
Oh yeah, that's not, too many oxalates are not going to be great for the thyroid. Yeah. So it depends though. The best thing you can do to know what your hormones look like is to do a Dutch test. It's a hormone test. What is it, $400, $450? Yeah, depending.
Retail is $500.
Yeah, retail is $500, right? So Dutch test is great. Urine test, very accurate to see exactly what's going on with that cascade of hormones. All right, next question. Yes?
With high homocysteine, the vitamin B you said?
Yeah.
Aren't there different types?
There are 16 B vitamins, right? Okay. So the one, I like to use a B vitamin complex. So Body Bio has a really good one that has all the B vitamins in there. But when we're looking at B vitamins, what you're typically going to find in the ones that I don't like is folic acid. We don't want that. We want folate, which is the methylated version. It's the real version. So always look for that in your B vitamins or multivitamins. You want folate, not folic acid. But two products that I love for B vitamins that have because all the B vitamins they all compete for the same receptor sites. All B vitamins compete for them. So what happens is, and this is the same thing with vitamin D, there's, or I should say all fat-soluble vitamins. So there's 16 B vitamins and there's 4 fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. They're all competing for the same receptor site. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm low in vitamin D. I'm just going to take 50,000 international units of vitamin D, and it blocks the other fat-soluble vitamins, and you get a functional deficiency. A, E, and K are low, even though vitamin D is high. Same thing with B vitamin. It's 16 of them, so you want to take them all. So Body Bio has a good one, and Systemic Formulas B16 is a good one.
You should separate your fat-soluble vitamins instead of taking them all?
Oh, with the vitamin D, you want to take them all. You want to make sure the vitamin D has all the fat-soluble vitamins together.
Okay, because I usually do take my D,
yeah, good. Well, I don't like the fish oil, yeah, but everything else is good, yeah. Or what you can do, you would take A, D, E, and K together. DV3 is a good company, good brand from Systemic Formulas that has it. But let's say you already have a vitamin D with K2, you could have that with a fatty meal, and that'll suffice too, because then you get all the fat-soluble vitamins. Because all of them compete for the same receptor site. So if you just take D alone, after a period of time, it creates a functional deficiency in the other 3.
Okay, so then they all have like a fighting chance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they all could get into the cell. Exactly. You don't want to just take D and then lower the other fat-soluble vitamins. You don't want to just take B6 or B12 and lower the other B vitamins. You take them all together.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So with folic acid is the
Bad.
synthesized version of folate.
Correct.
And is it true that like almost half of people can't break it down on their own? I saw that a lot of people that think they have like a gluten intolerance, it's a folic acid conversion problem.
I don't know. Do you know that? 46%? Yeah.
almost half of people, right? And so a lot, and that can cause inflammation.
Is that how many people have that gene? 46%?
People who have that
46% have a single mutation, MTHFR, and about 25% have a double mutation.
And anything fortified or enriched has been sprayed with folic acid.
I know, and that's causing problems. That's a high percentage. That's higher than I would think.
Can you repeat all that? I'm lost.
Yeah, so remember when I mentioned the MTHFR gene? It's a gene that 46% of people have, and then 25% have the double mutation, you said? When you have that, your methylation system is not working properly. Remember the barcode eliminating things? So when you take products that are fortified with folic acid or supplements with folic acid, it creates symptoms.
That's enriched wheat grain, all the cereals.
Correct, enriched cereals, orange juice, etc. All these different things. Yep.
Just to compliment on that, they had a huge issue for pregnant women who were told to be put on a multivitamin and told to take a lot of folic acid.
Correct.
They're actually doing more damage to themselves and their baby. So that's somewhat of an epidemic where doctors thought they were doing the right thing and actually causing more harm.
Correct.
Folate, though, but you need the folate.
No, folate is very important for pregnant women. Folic acid is not.
Yeah. Supplements are always in folic acid.
Correct, like prenatals that have folic acid.
Man-made version, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Body doesn't recognize it.
Yeah.
Can you
What's
speak to the difference between, because people aren't educated on vitamins, you know, they just see the letters. There's synthetic vitamins made from petrochemicals versus plant-based vitamins.
Yeah.
And most people just grab a bottle of Centrum and don't know
Correct.
that they're feeding, you know, big oil.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like akin to olive oil and seed oil.
Yeah.
You know?
Big
Both
difference.
Oils,
Yeah.
They're both vitamins, but one's good for you and one's synthetic. And a lot of people don't know the difference.
Yeah, no.
How to shop for that.
How to shop for that? You know, supplements are a big industry, right? It's like there's a big difference, to your point, between synthetic supplements and whole food source supplements. So I'll share some brands that I've vetted and I trust.
Right.
That's Bio, Body Bio, Systemic Formulas. These are all great. Designs for Health, great. Pure Encapsulations, great.
Garden of Life?
Who? Garden of Life, great. Yeah, Garden of Life is great. They source it the right way. And if you want to learn more about this topic, I mean, we could go on and on about this like for hours, but there's a book called The Truth About Antioxidants and Vitamins, Judith DeCava, old book, but it illustrates exactly the difference between synthetic stuff, which is essentially, as you've heard it before, expensive urine that your body doesn't recognize and you just get rid of it, literally putting your money down the drain, versus whole food source. But with supplements, there's an art to it. There's an art to everything. There's always a science, but more important, there's an art. I'm not a fan of taking the same supplement day in, day out. So I even think we should have one day out of the week where we take no supplements and just give your body a break. But we want to rotate supplements. If we keep taking the same one over and over, your body will start to adapt to it, and you're not going to get the same effect. But when you take a break and rotate, go on and off, that's where you continuously keep your body adapting, and adaptation is the key. But you want to make sure those supplements are whole food sourced, to your point, not synthetic. Okay, anybody else fasted like me right now? Am I the only? Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, I'm ready to feast. Is that it? I want to thank, first of all, thank you guys, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for always inviting me here. Yeah,
I love you so much.
I love you guys. Carolyn, you too. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
This clinic is amazing. You are also amazing. Thank you so much for being here and learning from me. Oh, yeah.
Anybody who
Thanks.
we're offering today.